Okay. Well, in the United Kingdom, we have a problem with excess winter mortality. When you compare the months December to March with other 4-month periods in the year, there are more than 20,000 excess deaths every winter. And 1/3 of those can be attributable to cardiovascular disease. So I've had a look at that in the British Regional Heart Study, which was a prospective study established at the end of the 1970s of British men in 24 towns. The black dots show those above there. But when the men in the study got to 1998, they were all at least 60 years old. And over a 14-year follow-up period from there, 915 of them had a first myocardial infarction or stroke, a CVD event, and we had a look at what the weather was like on the date they had that CVD event in their locality, and also what it was like 1 week before and 1 week after, so a little bit like the self-controlled case series earlier we were discussing. So having done that, we were able to work out the relative risk of a cold spell. That was 4 days of cold leading up to the date of the event or non-event. And we found a relative risk of 2.05. That's overall. But then we looked at some subgroups and we found that the younger of the men had a relative risk associated with a cold spell of 1.63 and older men 2.44. So the older were a little bit more susceptible. Similarly, smokers more than non-smokers, more susceptible to cold. Those with COPD, more susceptible. Drinkers, more susceptible. But those who were privileged enough to own their own car and house, which was both centrally heated and double glazed, were less susceptible. The other findings aren't worth talking about. However, so in thinking about winter mortality, it's not just a matter of cold temperature generally, but cold spells, cold snaps, which actually can occur in really quite mild months as well. There are some vulnerability factors or some suggestions such as COPD, but the question for primary care comes through a recent NICE guidance, yet again NICE guidance, to do with what to do with excess winter mortality, suggesting primary care ought to identify and target vulnerable people. And can primary care do that?
Fantastic timing. Question, can I ask about your p-values there? Are there our interactions?
That's right. So unfortunately they're non-significant. We're bringing in another data set with as many events again, and we're hoping that we can. So really, for the main effect, we've got good power, but the interactions, as in every other statistical analysis, less so. So it's not really all that convincing.
So, yeah, another hypothesis around winter and stroke is the link between flu virus or other respiratory infections and stroke. Were you able to take that into account, or what's your thoughts about that?
Well, in the sense that we don't know, being an epidemiological study, you just send questionnaires to people at irregular intervals every 2 or 3 years, so whether they had a flu vaccine. Well, the thing is, I suppose we're doing a within-person comparison, and because we were comparing the weather at the time of their event and maybe a week before and a week after, whether they'd had a flu vaccine, there wouldn't be a change in flu vaccination status within person. So because it's a within person analysis.
Yeah, sorry, I meant whether they
the susceptibility.
Flu or respiratory infection, because sometimes there's a link between the cold and these respiratory infections.
We don't probably have enough data on flu vaccination, I suppose, is the answer, sadly, but thanks.
Okay, I think that's out of time, so well,
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.